There are assumptions that we actually know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
My superpower is tempering. Sometimes I'm in a conversation like, I have nothing to add here because I know like the 3 sound bites that I read.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more.
Yeah.
So I have to shut up.
Yeah.
The mark of the well-trained mind is the ability to make distinctions. What do we mean by technology? What do we mean by digital technology? Some people saying AI mean completely different thing than you and I saying AI.
On this podcast, we talk a lot about technology, and most of the discussions are around technology that is at the headlines. It's the stuff that's happening here and every day. It's important, though, to think about what else is being invented when new technology comes on the scene. What's the second order effect? When the automobile was invented, all of a sudden you had this invention of this thing called a car crash. My guest today, Dan Churchwell, who's from Acton Institute here in Grand Rapids, is an author, thinker, lecturer on some of these topics. He takes us one layer deeper, not just to say we need to march forward with technology, but we need to think a little bit deeper. We need to temper a little bit our just pure optimism. I think it's something that's not talked about enough, and I loved this conversation because it really gets into the nuts and bolts of how we think. I'm Mike Sudyk. This is Faith in Tech. Dan, thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I am very excited about this conversation.
It's good.
Yeah. And we were talking before. You have such a unique perspective that we're going to get into, but a lot of the people that I have on this show or previously have are tech founders. So they're coming at it from a certain lens. So I'm real excited about like your vast like experience in academia, in talking with people from all spheres of this like faith, technology, business, enterprise. So you are a director at Acton Institute.
Correct.
Which is here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And Lord Acton, for those that the listeners don't know, the famous quote is "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." He's a famous quote. So tell us about Acton Institute. Like, what is the big picture? Why do they exist?
Yeah, Acton Institute is a think tank that was founded in 1990 by Father Robert Sirico and Chris Marin as an ecumenical think tank. So to think through religious questions about faith, work, and economics. And kind of virtue and economics, how they fit together. Father Sirico, his initial vision as a priest, he saw the outstanding, influence that priests had on their congregations, particularly around economic issues or social issues. And he felt that was going in one direction. And he asked if, some of the people that were studying in seminary, do you have any courses in seminary on economics? And they would say no. He asked some of his Protestant friends, do Protestant seminaries have economic courses or social, and they're like, no, not really. So somebody challenged him. They said, if you see this as a need, you should fill this gap. And so Father Sirico finally, with a little bit of funding, they started in a little kind of 2-room office above a flower shop near downtown. That's awesome. Just he and Chris. And they began to say, okay, how could we impact both Protestant and Catholic seminarians with this idea of economics and virtue? Can you have a free market and be virtuous? And that was started in 1990. Wow. And here we are 36 years later. So we have a flagship conference called Acton University, which happens the third week in June every year, actually here in Grand Rapids. A lot of our events are external, but we have the largest event here. 1,000 people from 80 countries come and participate in this conversation. And it just the influence is wide-reaching, but we also bring a lot of great people to Grand Rapids as well. So we're great on the local, but we're really well-known domestically and internationally.
Yeah.
We have a research arm, a program arm, and a media arm. Our brand new documentary on poverty is coming out in like a month or two for wide dissemination, called The Poverty Trap. We know one of our others is called the Poverty Inc., about the failure of international aid.
That is a very interesting documentary.
Have you seen it?
It's so interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of like when helping hurts, but in video form.
Yeah.
And so we just play in that space for academics, for religious leaders, nonprofit leaders, business leaders, and innovators want to know what we're doing, because they want to know, what is good business?
Yeah.
What does that look like to be a virtuous business leader in the modern world? And so we're very interdisciplinary in what we do.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And I think that's like you're kind of providing guardrails for businesses, but also like helping them. Like I said before, I think a lot of people I talk to are kind of tech founders, people in the tech sphere, which are, it's one of the things they don't seem to always have a depth of knowledge about society, culture, economics. It's like, it's much more present day. Like we're just charging forward.
Building stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we were having lunch the other day talking about some of these topics. And one of the things that was really interesting to me is you immediately went to kind of where we find ourselves now with technology in context of previous stages of, industrial revolution, different step changes in technology that have, and their impact with culture. So I think that's super interesting in terms of providing that perspective, right? And have that conversation. So tell me a little bit about some of the events that you're doing and how you're engaging with some of those different audiences. So you go to a lot of universities, you teach seminars, you're teaching classes, you're hosting events where there's a lot of Q&A, and that's, to me, really interesting because you have that pulse of kind of where things are at. So tell me a little bit about kind of that work that you're doing and where you find yourself. Like where you said you were traveling like how many weeks out of the year, like last fall?
Yeah, right? Last fall was just a zoo, but it was absolutely fantastic to be all over the world, several different continents, 14 different events. I mean, part of our job is travel because we communicate. Some of the work we're doing is our own conferencing. Every given year, it ranges from 25 to 40 events that we put on. And I just have the joy of leading a program and education team that are just fantastic. Logistics, hospitality, how we put on conferences that are our own. Yeah. And so we'll pick a topic, you can pick topics all along the spectrum. Because we are interdisciplinary, we can engage and bring in experts on topics. That's what people really love about our conferences. We bring experts in, but they're usually not one and done. We highly discourage a speaker to come in and then leave. In fact, they're usually highly curated weekend events where the speaker stays. You can have lunch with them. You can have deep Q&A. You can have conversations in the hallway. It cultivates a different kind of event if it's not just a speaker popping in, giving a TED Talk and popping out. Like you hear content. Yeah. Rather than develop relationship. Yeah. And we do it opposite. So it's a lot of work, but it's really great. But a third of my time though is also just me out speaking, largely on Christians and vocation. What does vocation look like? What is good work? What is virtuous work? And then around technology and the future of work. For 20 years, I've been studying and thinking about these topics, largely historical, sociological. I do have a theological background as well. And so trying to put the puzzle pieces together of our modern moment, I literally am a nerd that way. I love it. It's not what I do. Like, that's my job. It's who I am. I love it. And so when I'm on the road, you mentioned, what I love is kind of the sociological or anthropological aspect. I feel like an anthropologist dropped in these different locations. And of course I have my interests and Acton has their interests. So I'm able to ask a lot of great questions in a lot of different contexts and hear experts that most people would never have access to. And I'm just blessed. I mean, that's part of the job. Of course, when you're traveling that much, that the wear and tear, just getting places. Rough, if you could just teleport, right? That's the technology I want.
That's what I want that too. Yeah.
Because I love the people aspect, engaging the people and the teaching, listening and learning and the dialogue. About this topic, because as you know, everyone is talking about technology.
Everyone's talking about it,
and usually digital tech. That's primarily what's dominating people. But so, just to be able to ask questions. My father was a prosecutor his entire life. Okay, and so some people like Dan. Once I tell them that, they're like, that makes sense because I feel like they said you should be a professional. Giver of depositions. Like you ask, I just love asking questions. And I've never gotten away, maybe it's childlike, to ask a lot of questions, but I've never gotten away from that because if I don't understand something, I'm going to ask you, like, what do you mean? Dig deeper. The secondary, I think we let too many people either we're lazy and we're not listening to what people, because you can learn a lot about a person asking some layered questions about anything. But especially about technology. I think there's a lot of things that are just, either assumed or smuggled in, or that I find I'm unsatisfied with a lot of the answers out there.
Yeah.
So part of this is just my simple personality.
Do you think that's like this? You said smuggled in. Do you think that's like so economics is something that's always fascinated me. It's like I hold the belief, and maybe you can convince me otherwise. It's like economics is so complex that like no one can really get their heads around it. Of like how world economics, country economics, like all of these things actually like tie together. So you smuggle in these ideas because of the purpose of trying to simplify something that's very complex.
Sure.
So it's like you want to arrive at a very simple explanation for this complex system that you don't fully understand. So then you have to formulate this very simple answer so you can at least feel comfortable with that, and then you use that to kind of extrapolate in the future, which is part of the issue, right?
Yeah.
Do you find that to be the case, or is it like they're lacking context for where this falls, like in history and what we've seen in the past?
Probably the latter there.
Yeah.
More of it is, I think, part of our factoid culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We want the 30-second clip. Well, no, we want the 10-second clip, right?
Yeah.
And so to dig into economic systems, you can't just now economics largely in the West is econometrics, which is math and efficiency and numbers. When you read the economists of the 19th century and early 20th century, they were actually interdisciplinary because they understood economics impacts culture. And that's really what sets Acton apart, because there's a lot of economic think tanks out there.
Yeah.
But we're based on the understanding that who we are as human persons, made in the image of God in the Imago Dei, really does matter first. Who are we? That philosophical and theological question. Underneath that hangs Homo economicus and the political nature of question. We're not a political think tank.
Yeah.
We're not an economic think tank per se.
Yeah.
We believe that discovering human flourishing, what does it mean to be a human person, is the most important question. And of course, that means questions of economics, questions of political organization. And so I think usually it has to do with more that we don't ask enough questions. Our lives are busy. You have kids, I have kids. We were running our, most people, we're running our businesses, we're doing our jobs. And the quick soundbite we hear and we assume and we smuggle in and again, some of it's just naive. You hear somebody you trust say a thing and you just embody that. Or it already confirmation bias, right? You hear something that it confirms your priors. And so I just think we need, in the church, in the religious institutions that we're engaged with, in our own families, we need to have deeper, probably less topics, but deeper. And that's inefficient. And our modern worldview, our modern zeitgeist is efficiency at all costs. So when was the last time you literally sat down with somebody, let's just call it 3, there's no magic number, but 3 uninterrupted hours?
I don't know.
And just talked.
That's a good challenge.
and so, you know what I mean? We just don't. I mean, for the vast majority, unless you're stuck on an airplane, nobody, usually everybody's got the headphones on and they're watching the movie.
And now we got like Starlink internet on planes.
On American.
So, so it's like
one,
now you don't even have that.
Right.
Nothing is safe.
So that was a roundabout way of saying I think it's more that we don't, people don't fully understand deeper topics outside of, and then so we have to offload to experts. But then experts have their own biases and things, and so it's just hard to be a person, especially the life coming at you so fast. With so many topics at our fingertips. I mean, if you just open this morning, whether you're opening LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever there's 1,000 things to vie for our attention
that you have to be an expert on, or you're almost expected to have an opinion on, and it's like, how do you even handle that?
Right.
So the interesting thing with that, though, is where my mind goes sometimes is I recognize that. I think people recognize that. And then you say, Well, if you go back in history and you say there's more ignorance at the greater populace level of all those things happening. So like, just bear with me here. I want to pull this thread a little bit. So if you said, let's go back 150 years, even in the U.S., and you said, what was the knowledge that like the everyday person had? There's obviously a difference because there's a lot of things changing, like in the world and technology. But put that aside, and you say it's just they had a lower information intake, and so. But was there a knowledge difference there that was that created some sort of like hierarchical difference in society? So maybe I'm not making sense. So like, it's almost as if there was like there wasn't an expectation that everyone knew about everything, and how much was the population driving things or the culture, as opposed to like, big key players that were making these decisions for society. Like maybe that's not right, but it's like, it's almost like there's now there's an information overload. So you have all of this, all these people that are trying to make a judgment call on what's happening, or opinions and all this, and it leads to kind of a mass confusion. But then people going all these different directions forming these opinions. Maybe that's sorry if that's a little confusing.
I
kind of get what I'm trying to say.
I do, and I think what's really important to discern, I mean, the uses, one thing I like to study and think and talk about is the use of language in these conversations. Yeah. And I don't know if you just noticed how you interchange between information and knowledge. Yeah. And wisdom. Yeah. And so, the people of 1876, 150 years ago, you said, newspapers. Yeah. And word of mouth, the church, local, but that doesn't mean they weren't wise people, that they didn't have access to wisdom, that they didn't have access to a certain kind of common knowledge, that they couldn't learn things about the world. We know that's false. Yeah. But did they have access to unfettered information? Mm-hmm. No. And so I don't know. I think right now we think we're in the know. Mm-hmm.
Monitoring the situation. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's great. When that is almost worthless and filling in voids of curiosity. Mm. And for the most of human history, the idea of being the curiosity can lead to being a vice and not a virtue. It's vice or vicious. Yeah. It's a vicious human trait, a vicious habit. Yeah. And I think the more curious we have, I struggle with this. Yeah. Because I am interdisciplinary. I do like to read, study a lot of things. But if it's just surface level, sometimes I'm in a conversation, I'm like, I have nothing to add here because I know like the 3 sound bites that I read. Yeah. And there's nothing more. Yeah. So I had to shut up. Yeah. And I think a lot of people should learn from that. That we need to not talk about things we don't know about.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of rooted in, you could say pride or vanity, or this is my personal experience. Sure. Where you're like, there's this expectation where you have to posture such that you're in the know and you know about this topic and you have a formulated opinion. There's kind of that expectation. Yeah. So then you're just pulling from the sound bites, to make a argument, but it really is, it has nothing about the substance of the argument so much as it does about how you're going to be perceived. It's not actual discussion. This is I'm looking at myself, right? It's like, I want to be perceived as I know about this topic and I'm informed, but really I only have a basket of, sound bites that I've kind of formulated my opinion on. And then the discussion doesn't get any deeper because I don't kind of let it get deeper. But I'm curious, you said, curiosity could become a vice. Like, unpack that a little bit, because being a father, young kids, like, you want to stoke that curiosity, because that's what drives them to learn more, to do new things, and the notion of kids aren't bored these days, right? Yeah. They're always like occupied some way, and then so if you're not bored, you don't become curious and you don't expand. So tell me a little bit about how curiosity is a vice.
Curiosity about all things. Yeah. I have 4 kids. Yeah. And I just remember as we raised them, and there is certain seasons where they're just asking questions about everything. And that is a part of childlike faith. That's a part of entering the world, engaging, learning categories, just absorbing. And that is part of being a child.
Yeah.
But there's, whether you want to go theologically or scripturally, there's the idea where you have to grow out of a certain kind of naivete about the world and start to learn category. And this is what nostalgia is. This is what, people yearn for, the simpler days when you could just ask questions and not be But as you grow, learn, and get older, the responsibility actually grows. What are you going to do with that knowledge? What are you going, so this idea of curiosity, particularly in our modern moment, is infectious. And what I mean, a child's like curiosity is infectious because they are entering the world and wanting to know. And I don't think the most curious people actually want to know.
That's interesting.
No, that idea of knowledge.
Yeah.
They want to understand. Do you really want to have wisdom? Do you really want to understand? The book of Proverbs, right?
Yeah.
Wisdom, if you read all about and trace it, you should do a Bible study or a personal study through the idea of wisdom through Proverbs and Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
And understand where wisdom, general, rational, again, what it means to be a human person. That's what Acton is interested in. What makes us distinct from animal is the rational faculty that we can understand, have access, ask second ordered questions. And so what does it mean to build the life of wisdom? And raw curiosity, some people say, well, that's ADHD.
That's me right there.
Yeah. You're bouncing. Yeah. And there's a level of that, which is probably true.
Yeah.
Of course, ADHD is real. Some people have struggle concentrating, but think about, usually we have triangulated factoids. And as soon as the constellation of factoids, there's, like I said earlier, there's nothing deeper. And so the life of wisdom is cultivated a lot of times with silence or longer conversations, sustained conversations with people that know more about a topic than we do. And it's, again, longer, sustained conversations.
Yeah.
And the Sherry Turkle at MIT wrote a book called Reclaiming Conversation recently. And she's most famous for her book Alone Together about robotics. Yeah. And how people are, can fall in love platonically. The more you have a robotic structure look like a humanoid rather than like a cube.
Yeah.
The more humanoid it looks, the more we attach feelings. Yeah. And so there's a huge philosophical debate. Yeah. Should we make our robots look like humans? Yeah. And on multiple levels. Right. And so she wrote a book, Alone Together, exploring some of that. But her more recent book called Reclaiming Conversation was talking about how that's what's missing in our world. And I just take it to heart. I try to really, I love biography. Yeah. And not only what's better than a personal biography. You walk into church, how you doing today? Great. And you walk, what I mean? We joke about the superficiality of our world. Yeah. And I think, when you talked about 150 years ago, what information did those people have? Yeah. They had deep information about less things. Yeah. And I don't know if that's, I don't.
How does that relate to like meaning and how you see yourself? Because I think that's if you don't have that depth of knowledge, that contributes to your idea of yourself and your confidence, and then also the depth of relationships is around security and all of that. Like to me, when you go there, I immediately think we have all of these connections online, friends, followers, all of this, and you're messaging people, you're texting people, but you never really call them, and so you have these shallow relationships, but is that reflected in your shallow kind of view of yourself / the world, and how does that tie in?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Social media is largely performative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a vice.
Yeah.
It's you and I are probably going to post this picture.
Yeah.
Look, we did a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously I want to I like you. You're a friend. We've created relationships over multiple years.
Yeah.
We meet we hadn't seen each other for a year and a half, and we pop in at a lunch. So there's something real here.
Yeah.
But what are we doing when you try to write these? There's the LinkedIn guy.
Yeah.
And I say that you immediately know who immediately know who that is, and their life is curated on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And now there's memes about have you seen the meme about dog bark if dog was a LinkedIn?
No, I haven't seen
so dog barks at noise in yard. That's the one tile, and then the second tile is a curated LinkedIn dog. Properly prepares and protects his and it does these.
Yeah. And there's that's hilarious.
Making fun of LinkedIn, man. We know who that is, and it's a curated self.
Yeah.
It's a perception. It's what, and sometimes I think maybe I need more of that. I don't curate enough.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's silly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we know, we can see it. We know who's writing with AI.
Yeah, yeah.
You can if you're a reader.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, that person, they're curated Friday 5. That's all AI.
Yeah.
And I think when the ability to sit in silence, or the ability to look somebody in the eye and say, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that person. I'm unfamiliar with that. The epistemic humility, that's the $10 word phrase. Epistemic humility, epistemology, how you know what you know.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting, the meta thing here in this conversation is that, we hadn't seen each other for a little bit, and we bump into each other at that luncheon. And one of the things that you said was, we were talking about AI, and I was kind of asking you, hey, Dan, you're plugged into this. So you made a comment about technology cycles, and you're talking about generational and how it takes a certain period of time. Because I was taking more of the accelerationist with a dose of doomerism about AI, and it's going to take you jobs and And so you make this comment that's kind of, I would say a little bit like putting a little bit of water on that fire. Like, hey, it's not that crazy. But you kind of made these comments that it was interesting because psychologically I'm like, it sounded like an uninformed comment, but it was coming from someone that I knew was very informed. So meaning like, oh, it's not that you said this, but it's like, oh, it's way overhyped and it's just kind of a fad. But you were saying it takes these things. So you were saying, hey, I have all this depth of knowledge about history, and this is kind of how I've seen it. And I'm way over here in this camp about like AI is like, it's going to take over all this stuff.
Sure.
And I'm like, I had to reconcile that, because it goes back to the soundbite kind of education depth of knowledge. Yeah, I had a lot of understanding of where AI is at, but you almost kind of drink a little bit too much of the Kool-Aid. And then when you have someone, if you didn't have the expertise that you had, and you were not in and out studying this stuff, talking about it, it would have almost been a dismissive comment. I would have almost put you in a bucket.
Sure,
and I'm being really transparent.
I love it.
Right?
I love
it's
it,
like,
yeah.
I almost been like, yeah, he just doesn't know.
Sure.
Like, he's just ignorant of what's going on. But that's what didn't reconcile. I'm like, Dan actually knows this. Like, he's actually plugged into this stuff. Yeah. So it forced me to kind of say, let's take this a step deeper, and let me challenge what I see out there, and let me hear what you said. And then I was like, we got to talk more in detail about this, because most of my circles are more in the way into the accelerationist, like, and not that those guys are all wrong, but it's like, it's a nuanced thing.
It's a flavor.
It is a flavor.
It's a flavor.
It is, yeah.
So, as the kids say these days, my superpower, what's your superpower?
Yeah.
Is tempering. And I don't know why. The first time I ever came across Aristotle, I was in seminary, I think, when I first engaged Aristotle in any meaningful way. His idea of golden mean, the idea between excess, when he's talking about the virtues, between excess and deficiency of any virtue. How do you judge? And the golden mean between excessively thinking something or deficiency. So his idea is courage.
Yeah.
So what does it look like to point at courage?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, there's the deficiency of courage is what? Cowardice.
Yeah.
And the excess is rashness, to be rash, foolish.
Yeah.
And he goes, Courage is finding the golden mean between being a coward and being just rash.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he laid that out as a methodology of thinking about any virtue.
Yeah.
And so tempering, that's what I mean, like finding the golden mean.
Yeah.
I've never been satisfied, like boomers and doomers, or techno-optimists, techno-pessimists. There's several ways to get at what you're trying to get at.
Right.
I have never been satisfied with people on either side. My whole entire life. And I try to say, okay, who's reading this and why are they reading it? I'm not acting like I am an expert in this, but I have read widely and deeply. I've had many conversations across that spectrum, and I find when we get stuck, so when I'm in a room of techno-optimists, I play the doomer.
Yeah.
I think, well, what about this?
Yeah.
What about this? When you think about this, when you think about that.
Yeah.
And when I'm in techno doomer space, I'm like, well, look, technology has done a lot of great things for what we have and what life looks like now.
Yeah.
And I'm able to pick at the edges.
Yeah.
And some people, I mean, there's leaders that like, we need vision.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to be around charismatic people to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of charlatans out there, or people that just have great charisma, but actually aren't leading people in any meaningful direction, or quite possibly leading people in a way that's unhealthy.
Yeah.
And so and I don't know, this is just who I am. It's not, and it makes some people frustrated with me. That's fine. But it's like, we don't have a lot of social criticism.
Yeah.
And I'm maybe old school.
Yeah.
And I want to criticize in the sense that I take truth to be the superpower.
Yeah.
And usually, especially in our modern curated world, especially about artificial intelligence, there's so many language games. There's so many economic arguments smuggled. There's a lot here. I don't think that AI isn't real.
Yeah.
I know I've used it at work. There's ways that it's made some of the work we do more efficient.
Yeah.
But I'm not like, I don't think this is going to change the world like certain people do.
Yeah.
I do think it will be incorporated into the world, and I guess my superpower, if you understand what I mean by tempering, I don't, and people don't like that. People like, they want you to be their cheerleader, they want you, and I'm like, well, I just don't look at the world that way.
Yeah,
and so this topic on technology and the future of work, was probably kindled in me as a child. My grandmother, she was born in 1920 and lived to 100 and almost 2.
Yeah. Wow.
So died fairly recently.
That's a lot of stuff to see.
1920.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, so this wasn't formal study. This was like you talk about curiosity.
Yeah.
She grew up just south of Colorado Springs.
Okay.
And she remembered her dad was a union buster. The labor in the mines around Colorado Springs at that time.
Yeah.
If you study that period, major labor unrest.
Yeah.
She remembers the little town that she grew up in outside of Colorado Springs, the first time they got a grocery store. Like grocery stores were invented in her lifetime. It was a Safeway.
Yeah.
That's a Western brand. I don't know if you're
familiar with it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So Safeway came to, and she remembers that it put the butcher out of business. She remembers that the general dry goods store had to shift and change. So I learned at a very young age, listening to my grandmother talk about in the shadow of Pikes Peak and her dad's labor issues, her understanding of getting fresh water into their house for the first time. Yeah. And the grocery, and for me as a kid,
you're like,
we wake up, we turn on the lights, we turn on the faucets, we drive down to Albertsons or here, Meijer, and so at a very young age, my curiosity was just piqued.
Yeah.
But then for the last 20 years, I've had the ability to actually. So I people ask me, why are you interested in this? And I think that's the genesis.
Yeah.
Is my grandmother.
Yeah.
Grandma Helen, engaging me with these stories. But then for 20 years of my professional life, I was a professor for 10 years, and now I've been in the think tank world for 10 years. I have been able to just read and study on these topics, and I think tempering or asking good questions to people in any sphere shows I'm interested, shows I want to know what you know, I want to think about what you're thinking about, but then also saying and being able to question, is that the best way to go about things?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring up that story about your grandmother because it kind of hits on this abstraction layer. When we talk about AI, like the thing that I'm interested in is if we're with every step change in technology in modern life, we kind of get a little bit abstracted from the source.
Yeah.
Right. So whether that's like food, from dry goods to the Safeway, or electricity from like, you don't have to have like a fire to produce light or something.
Sure.
Running water, you're not actually going to the source. It just comes through this like, pipe in your house. And so then you're even going like, you're thinking about like, the internet, let's talk about just like Amazon retail, right? It's like, you don't actually go to a store, the box just shows up on your porch. Like if you're taking kind of an absolutist view, like you could never go to the store, right? So then with the step change with AI is like, it's become the thinking, we're abstracting our thinking to AI. Like in my space with software development, that's a big topic because you went from actually just writing code to like teaching the machine how to write the code. So then you still have to understand the whole process, to do that really well.
Vibe coding, right?
Yeah, vibe coding. Yeah, but you get abstracted even more because then when stuff goes bad, you don't even know how to fix it.
Yep.
And so, but is that the step change that's different, that has greater consequences for society because we're outsourcing our thinking or we're abstracting our thinking away? And what is the impact of being so abstracted from the source of things?
So cognitive offloading, is that?
Yeah,
that's
kind of.
a lot of people.
Yeah, that would be exactly
the bundled. They bundle this. So I don't know how nerdy you want to get. I know we only have a short amount of time here, but
I want to get nerdy. So
okay. Well, I think this is where I use the term smuggled in. We've already smuggled in so many assumptions. You and I just keep using AI. AI. Could you define AI for me? And I'm not trying to test you, but I think there are assumptions that we actually know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But usually the person, it's shorthand now. We just say AI. What do you mean? Do you mean machine learning? Do you mean large language models? Do you mean artificial neural networks? Do you, Marvin Minsky said words like this are suitcase words or concepts that they need to be unpacked. And usually we're now, it's shorthand or journalistic kind of laziness when we just say AI, because there's a bundle of things because most people don't think when they plug in their iPhone to their car and they're going to a new location and they put in maps that they're using AI.
Right.
But they are.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so what do we mean by technology? What do we mean by digital technology? What do we mean by, this is what I mean by secondary and tertiary questions.
Yeah.
Because some people saying AI mean completely different thing than you and I saying AI.
Yeah.
And so the use of language is very important. And the mark of the well-trained mind is the ability to make distinctions. And the more distinctions are flattened or assumed that we each know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You're around founders, you're around technologists, you're around techno-optimists. Yeah. You yourself run a company that is highly involved in technological innovation.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to use a lot of the same language.
Yeah.
And some of those assumptions or definitions, we all have to have shorthand. We couldn't think about a conversation if you had to define everything, right? That would be cumbersome. Right. I understand why it happens. But with technology itself, digital technology, particularly artificial intelligence, there is so much hype and subscription onto things that don't necessarily warrant it, that I find it at the best case, just naive. The worst case, intellectual laziness. That's where I almost have a personal affront to some of it.
Yeah,
I was in a conversation, man, this was 2.5 years ago now, when AI and agentic AI, was coming out, and I remember where I was sitting the first time I heard somebody tell me that I should treat artificial intelligence like a colleague.
You're like, okay, let's unpack that.
I broke, and I was recording a podcast, a larger event, and you can. People joke in my office. They're like, "Yeah, we could see you break."
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a second. Artificial intelligence is my colleague?
Yeah.
What are we smuggling in there? In the Monday morning, I always do a stand-up with my team.
Yeah.
How are we doing for the week? What's the thing? What do we got to do? I just do like a 5-10 minute stand-up just and then go team. Well, one of my, team members just had a baby. So, what's this? How's this doing? You have personal relationships.
Yeah.
Are you taking the boat out this weekend? Did you go skiing?
Yeah.
I'm not going to walk in to my office and say, "Oh, hey, Claude.
Yeah.
How was your weekend? How you do?" It sounds silly.
Yeah. I had a baby. It's called co-work, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I named my baby Gemini. And I just find the use of language around these so important.
Yeah.
And clarity of speech about what we are talking about. Again, not that it's not real, not that these founders aren't building real companies, not that they're not doing certain kinds of things. I believe that's real.
Yeah.
But then you have to, in the modern world, to either attract funding or to attract, like we already talked about earlier, like attention. Look at me. This is what I'm doing. Yeah. It almost begs overhype, over-deliver, or over-explain and under-deliver, on some of these products. And it might not be as groundbreaking as we're talking about, but we have to, the modern world in AI, there's a Christian company that just got $100 million round of funding.
Yeah.
And they're building it around this redemptive technology. And is it really?
Yeah.
Can we just say we're building this kind of tech and we're hoping, do you have to couch it in special Jesus language?
Yeah.
It's like the King of the Hill quote about Christian rock.
Yeah.
You're not making Christianity better. You're making rock and roll worse, right? And I think there's some of that vibe going on, particularly in the Christian world.
Yeah.
That I think does need a little criticism.
Yeah.
And or backing off and saying, asking some questions. What do we really mean by this? What are we trying to do with it? Because personally, fundamentally, I think there's more technologies that are more groundbreaking, more virtuous, more justice enhancing than artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. But all of the view, all of the money, all of the conversation is aimed at an oversubscribed engagement, almost an idolatry in technology.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And some people call there's a media theorist who argues that technological progress is America's civil religion. Mm-hmm. We're built, like our civil religion has been built on technological progress, and it's just the water we swim in. Mm-hmm. And for as Americans, it's almost like anti-American to ask something like
to go against that,
to go against that,
be perceived as going against that.
So is that the the civic religion that those words mean things?
Yeah.
So it's a civic religion. Yeah. But if you study theologically and think about it, is it idolatry?
Yeah.
To worship something out of place.
Yeah, I think this is a super interesting topic. Like, at what point does it become worship, and at what point? So one of the things that my thought is like, okay, you look at Scripture and you look at the Tower of Babel, and you say, okay, what was going on there? They wanted to build a tower to reach God. That's kind of the very like rudimentary level. Well, they were actually arrogant in saying we can be like God. We have this technology and these bricks and all this stuff. And fill me in where I'm lacking here. But and so you have this story, and then what does God do in response? And He scatters everyone and creates different languages, all of that. One of the things that's always in the back of my mind is like, he did that for Tower of Babel, but like here we got this AI stuff that's going on, and we're trying to go to the moon and stuff. Like, seems like, and we have a civic religion of technological progress, which is I think spot on. We're kind of doing the same thing. Hey, we're doing the same thing philosophically on some level. So
Absolutely.
why is that Why is there no consequence for that? I mean,
Well, or is the consequence bedded into it?
yeah.
And so this is one of my favorite themes, that there's not a week that goes by where I don't think about this.
Yeah.
This Paul Virilio in 1999, he was an Italian philosopher, has a quote in one of his books that says, with the invention of the shipwreck, or with the invention of the ship comes the invention of the shipwreck. With the invention of the plane comes the invention of the plane crash. With the invention of electricity comes electrocution. The negativity of any technology is created therein.
Yeah.
In other words, there are always, economists call this trade-offs.
Yeah.
So in technological ethics, if you think about that, the progress is built or thought about, because obviously ship and intercontinental, we could talk about all the great things of airplanes,
Yeah.
talk about all the wonderful things of technology.
Yeah.
His argument is that it's built, and there's a constellation of thinkers around him that believe similar things. But I just love how he compacted it into that one statement. That the negativity of any technology is built at the time of creation. It's created at the same time.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's what's going through my mind, and I'm thinking through, okay, about this technology, there's a lot of great things going on. What are the shipwreck sides of things that were created at the same time? I think that maps onto reality. I think it corresponds to reality strongly. And so when you ask about what is the judgment, the Tower of Babel moment here, maybe it's already been built. Maybe it's embedded.
Yeah, you're kind of getting the consequence.
The good and the bad, because the bricks that they were building, most people say it was a ziggurat, right? Most people they were building the ziggurat out of. The bricks weren't evil.
Yeah.
It was the mindset.
Yeah.
It was how they were viewing who they were in relation to who God is.
Yeah.
It's some theologians would call it the creator-creature distinction.
Yeah.
That the creator is fundamentally distinct from the creature.
Yeah.
And
even though it's made in the image.
Of course, we're made in the image of God,
Yeah.
and some people use the language of co-creation,
Yeah.
or we were made to be like God, but we
Yeah.
weren't made to be God.
Yeah.
But we know through human history, theological history, that most humans want to be like God.
Yeah.
They want to be their own God.
Yeah.
And that comes out in different ways in different
Yeah.
eras. And so I think that idea in artificial intelligence, we have to start thinking again, what kind of machine learning is usually
Yeah.
what most people mean.
Yeah.
Modern AI is machine learning. That's the most common use or thing we're talking about. And so is there cognitive offloading? What does that do to our human personhood? Is there, what does that do to education? What does that do? People think it's monolithic. Like, oh, Dan, if you're not an optimist, you're a pessimist. I'm like, no, it's a spectrum. And it depends on what kind of thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
And if what I love is I get to learn and talk with business owners just as much as
thinkers, as academia.
theologians, academia, all the way. And these business leaders are giving me really clear ideas of what sectors are using AI, what's benefiting, how they're benefiting.
Yeah.
And there are definitely, clearly, 3 or 4 sectors that are really benefiting from a certain kind of AI.
Yeah.
So translate that then into what are concrete cases of artificial intelligence actually benefiting the greater populace versus what you hear. I mean, I didn't look today, but I'm sure there's another quote almost daily.
Yeah.
Amadei or somebody comes out and says, in 3 to 5 years, there will be no white collar workers.
Right. Right.
It's some variation of that, right?
Yeah.
There's a dozen variations of that idea.
Yeah.
Uber CEO was the most recent.
Yeah.
Yesterday,
Yeah.
did you? He went viral yesterday.
No, I heard him at a talk a few weeks ago, but what did he say yesterday?
Yeah, well, maybe it just hit the wires yesterday. It might have been from that talk, but the idea he's saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, they always say that.
Yeah, right. So he was doubling down on the idea of massive economic disruption.
Yeah.
Because some people, they poo-poo that when it comes out, and then some people are like, no, it is going to be disruptive.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about, if you actually took these people at their word
Yeah.
and extrapolated out 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
and the amount of disruption
Yeah.
that would happen would lead to a worldwide collapse.
Yeah.
Nobody should want that.
Yeah.
In any way. Do you want the zombie apocalypse? You know, I mean,
it's also like maybe it's contradictory in how they're actually behaving too. Meaning, like, if they actually did believe that, would they be building a bunker someplace?
Yeah,
like
New Zealand.
It's kind of like, I mean, not to get political, but it's like people talking about climate activism and then they buy a beach house and it's like, but yet they say the oceans are going to rise by like 10 feet in like 2 years. And that's like, but it's a notion of they're sending this message, but then are you actually like operating based on that? You know, they're actually just trying to get funding for their AI company, right?
About 2 years ago, I started to witness another theme coming out, and I've heard it almost probably 10 to a dozen times now at different Christian conferences, usually around the like the builder, the faith and workspace, or the people, because everybody's got to talk about tech right now because who wants to talk about other boring things? Everybody's talking about tech. Everything is tech. Like this is getting kind of boring. And it's important though, and I heard, and largely it comes from the mouths of young people. So I try to give them a dose of grace. Yeah. But they quote 2 Timothy 1:7.
Yeah. God did not give us a spirit of fear.
God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of sound mind. And I remember that I won't do her accent because it's probably kind of rude. But she was a classic young, educated young woman, right out of law school, hired into a large firm in a big town in the Midwest, and she was in charge of all the company's AI. She was 2 years out of law school. Yeah. Christian conference, and she quotes that. And she goes, anytime I have anybody ask me questions about AI, I just tell them to not have the spirit of fear. Yeah. She quotes the verse and moves on. And then I started hearing that pop up, and I haven't been able to dig down to see if there was one person that started it, and I find that on so many levels insulting. It's not hermeneutically sound. If you look at the text, that's not what's going on. As a student of the Bible, you should, context matters. What are the verses around? Good evangelicals, like to cherry pick. Yeah. Right. You grab it like Jeremiah 29:11.
Yeah.
Through 30.
That's right. That applies everything.
If you keep reading in Jeremiah 29, God has plans for you, not for a future and hope, and then it describes it. But if you don't act this way, God will come and like destroy. I mean, like you keep reading and it's like, I don't.
No, I just like the first one.
Yeah.
I don't know the rest.
And so, evangelicals are famous for this kind of hermeneutical, just grab a verse. So whatever, that's a weakness of Bible training. But it's also, when you think about fear, they're smuggling in and they're saying any kind of questions, it's monolithic. And they're talking about optimism. Raw optimism is Christian. They're trying to relate something. Fear is evil. Optimism is good. Yeah. And that's just so rhetorically unsatisfying. And it's naive. Like it's like you think, if we look at some of the best tech or most interesting tech scholars, skeptics, engagers of the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. You have a French Reformed Protestant. You have a deeply in Jacques Ellul. You have a deeply embedded Catholic thinker in Marshall McLuhan. The medium is the message. You have a secular Jewish thinker at NYU named Neil Postman. You have I
really like Neil Postman.
Oh yeah, you can go across the spectrum, right? And you can start picking at these. And it's not like evangelicals are the only people having questions.
Right.
About this.
The interesting thing I was thinking about just now is like the relation of that the fear verse is used to say any critique of optimism is labeled as fear. But the interesting thing is that the optimism actually has an underlying motivation of FOMO, which is fear of missing out.
Absolutely.
Like you look at a lot of the accelerationists, myself included in technology, it's like there's a motivating factor that, hey, we're going to get left behind in this huge shift. Yeah. And that's why we have to press forward. That's why we have to like throw off all the guardrails. We got to charge forward. We got to embrace AI. We got to go all in. And you say, well, what is actually motivating that? It's a fear of missing out. It's a fear of missing a market opportunity. It's a fear of losing the market opportunities that we have. Yeah. It's fear of being perceived as antiquated in our approach. So there's actually it's ironic that you're quoting that verse because you're probably motivated by the fear of missing out. Like
Totally. And I like to phrase it this way that because there's a major distinction between optimism and hope. And optimism is about outcome. Hope is about orientation.
Interesting.
Optimism is about outcomes because think about social media for a moment. 20 years, the trial of the century, whatever just happened, and Zuckerberg was just and YouTube were combined fined, and this isn't even a lot of money. I hate to even say that, but $375 million earlier this week.
Yeah.
Because of the 20-year understanding and historical period that we know that social media was addictive in certain kind of ways. Jonathan Haidt, Gene Twenge, there's other, and some people have a lot of debate with Haidt, but what I love about Jonathan Haidt is whether you agree or disagree with him, he created a website called After Babel, where you can go and he engages with all of his critics. And said, okay, you think I'm wrong here, this data set is wrong here, and they have a true conversation on, and you and I could go witness it at After Babel. So I have deep intellectual respect, even though maybe I disagree with Haidt in a few places, that social media was a 20-year experiment. We know there were definite evils, definite thing, and we can say that. Christians should be able to, secularists and people that don't, materialists that are in this world that don't have a Christian orientation, theological orientation, they're gonna phrase it differently. But we can say there's good and bad. Christians should be comfortable saying there's good and evil. There are ways in which this is harmful. What generally theologically we would call sin. We have sinful motivations. We have sinful desires. We have and so this concept about technology is important because you have the opportunity to say a distinction about optimism, like you said, FOMO, or it's about outcome. Well, we know 20 years ago, social media was seen as this great thing, and now we know very distinctly it was harmful in very clear and concrete ways. Where are we going to be in AI 20 years from now? What is the shipwreck part of the ship that we will be, you and I, 20 years from now can be sitting, we don't know, we're not prophets. But it will happen. And so I think there's a virtuous angle to be thinking about. I was with a founder, brilliant man. He came out of one of the largest social media companies we would all know. I was with him this last fall, and I'd seen him at a conference, and then I was lecturing at an event, and then his city was just one suburb over, and he met with me. And we went a walk across or down the river. He's like, I need to get out of the office. And we walked for an hour and 10 minutes and just talked. Major player in artificial intelligence. And he looks at me and a dedicated believer. And he said, Dan, he literally quoted what you just said. I peppered him with all kinds of questions, as you can imagine. And he was open, and we engaged. But at the end of the talk, we shook hands at his office, and he goes, I really wish I could think about these questions more deeply. But my company is at the forefront of what this kind of, and we just have to produce. We just have to execute. We just have to ship. And I appreciate his honesty. But there is a level of slowing down, innovation, whether technological progress is our civic religion, innovation, frictionless. A 3-hour conversation is full of friction. Everything about our modern world, another idol of is efficiency. And again, not that efficiency is wrong, but are humans efficient? You're the father of 7?
7, yeah. Nah. Not efficient.
Are children efficient?
They're not efficient at all.
Is spousal, like husband, we celebrate 25 years this year, my wife and I.
Congratulations.
A marriage, think about it with me, right? Anybody who's open, that's not efficient. About how marriages work. Good marriages that endure over time deal with struggle. And so I just think we have too many golden calves that are idols that we're worshiping that take some more consideration.
Well, that's kind of the argument, the whole natalism argument about like, people are not having kids. Well, it's like, because it's not efficient. Like they look at, well, we're not ready. There's the financial thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then make all these arguments around the efficiency. Yeah. And that's not necessarily a good thing to look at it just from that lens. But the AI thing is like, you talk about like they were going and like racing and they can't stop. And that's exactly what you see though. All these like build outs of the compute, the data centers. Mm-hmm. It's like, there's this idea that's a winner take all market and you just have, and it's like, there's no consideration for what does that rapid march produce? What are all of the, the negatives, whether it's the car and the car crash that are being created along the way? Yeah. And it seems like there's quite a few of them.
Oh, there will be. Yeah. Yeah. And the some people are calling this the fourth industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution, you have steam power. Yeah. It's largely Britain and Belgium, like four to five countries. Yeah. Because we think about industrial revolutions, but they've changed. And I have this compression theory that when you read so much, you don't know where your ideas come from fully. Yeah. And then, I have this compression theory, but it comes out of studying the industrial revolutions. The first industrial revolution really only affected 3 to 4 countries. People don't realize that. Yeah. Or it is, I don't know what a lot of people, they think it's more worldwide. Yeah. First wasn't. Yeah. 5 countries, six max. Yeah. Second industrial revolution, you have it expand to like 15 or 20 countries. And the impacts and their true.
So what are the time periods of those roughly?
First industrial revolution, 1760 to 1840. Yeah. The second industrial revolution is right after the Civil War. Usually all of these are buffeted by wars or major issues. So 1870 to 14. Yeah. Third industrial revolution is post-World War. So you go from 1914 to essentially 1955, 60. Yeah. There's debate, but because you have the Great Depression, then you have the World Wars,
then the
World War I, World War II, and then just a little bit of so most people say 55, 60 for the third industrial revolution, which is then in 60 to 80 countries, depending on how you parse it. Well, this fourth industrial revolution, if it is. It's the combination. Some people say it's just the elongation of the third. It's like the natural outworking of the third industrial. Yeah. Some people argue 2016 is when the phrase came out, the fourth industrial revolution. And this concept of the scope, speed, and systems impact is what's unique with it, because it's almost every country. Like you work in India, right? Yeah. Yep. And so now if you think about the vast speed at which we can iterate, innovate, how things are, the Indian country itself, if you look at their history with cell phones, and the continent of Africa too, and India is similar, they leapfrogged the laptop generation. Yeah. They almost went to mobile. Yeah. Like and everybody has mobile now. Yeah. And mobile apps, payment apps and things in India particularly and parts of Africa, they're just booming. And so every country, so you have these small pockets, highly influential, but the industrial revolutions are compressing, and the time frame, and why that matters. Let me just slow down. Why that matters is because then society is able to adjust to the change. Yeah. And if you start compressing major technological innovations and shifts, because no technology stands alone. It's all interconnected, right? AI is affecting every sphere. You talk to manufacturers, you talk to medical people, you talk to lawyers, you talk to, it's across the board having a certain kind of influence. Yeah. So if the compression theory that I'm playing with is this idea that society, some people would argue that some of the political unrest we're seeing now is baked into this idea, because people aren't able to handle all of the stress, all of the innovation. Carl Benedict Frey is a brilliant author out of Oxford. His book in 2019 called The Technology Trap. He's an economic historian of technology. It won multiple awards, but it's one of the best books out there that traces this. And then his brand new book from just this fall called When Progress Ends. And he's a techno-optimist.
Yeah.
So I love to read the guys that are truly techno-optimists, truly for society, thinking we're innovating, but saying, but look, historically, and that's where when I was talking with you at the luncheon, it's from Frey that I got the idea and have dug in deeper now, that it roughly takes 2 generations for people to adjust from major technological change. And there's major disruption.
Yeah.
In that. There's
in the meantime.
Straight up revolution in some cases. And so if you start compressing those moments, people don't have the time to adjust to reap the benefits because there's a lot of disruption, but then eventually there's more people gain than lose, which is raw utilitarianism, and that's a whole nother question, a whole nother podcast. But if there's more winners than losers, we should all be thankful, that there's benefits that come. So I'm not saying technological advancement doesn't breed and lead to benefit. It does, clearly.
Yeah.
But the shipwreck side of that is there's always disruption.
Yeah.
Historically, through those eras, you get through and the more you compress and you don't allow the time for society, cultural, social adjustment, that I don't think we're in the water again. We don't. It's just the water we're swimming in.
Yeah.
But if you think about all the dissonances politically, economically, that are going on right now, socially, is it possible that it's all? I think it's all part of some of the innovative crush that we haven't been able to socially adjust, culturally adjust to all of the innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's super interesting. I think the ability, it's almost like it's a flywheel of that almost makes the problem worse, right? Because you compress it, you get people that are they're trying to understand it. Well, then that even creates even more of a panic of like, oh, I see that it's happening so fast, so I'm gonna get more panic. So then it's like there's this notion of like fear turning off your creative side or your innovative side, like just psychologically. And so it's almost like a negative feedback loop, in terms of making a downward spiral. Yeah, which is not good.
No, it's not.
Yeah. No, this is super interesting, Dan. I think I really appreciate you giving that perspective, because I think talking deeper about these subjects and not saying, oh, you talk about efficiency. It's like, well, what are the conclusions that we can get from out of a podcast? Like, I just want I want a soundbite, and I want like you to convince me that like, hey, this is the simplistic response I can have to all of these crazy things in the world, right? Yeah. It's like, but that's not what you're saying we should strive for, Instead, we should say, how do we seek to understand things in light of all of, history, religion, and kind of like where we're going. And I think the thing that sticks with me is this whole civic religion of progress or efficiency or technology progress, and how much it drives so much, and being aware of that is so important. And I think the notion of you kind of can't put the genie back in the bottle is a big talking point with like AI right now. And that's like, that's led to discussions around the AI arms race, and saying like, but I think we should poke that a little bit and challenge it a little bit. That's not necessarily a fact or a doctrine that we should hold, like that just because the genie's out, we need to just all of a sudden race after it. Yeah. Right. Like, so I think that to me, that's challenging in my thinking.
There's if you want to go, proverbial or biblical, there's this idea of counting the cost before you do something.
Yeah.
And, I know we probably have to wrap up here pretty soon, but the idea of, technology is just a tool. AI is just a tool. Well, there's a whole podcast on it. Really? Is that a tool? Are tools neutral?
Yeah.
Is that really, everybody just thinks, oh yeah, all tools, that's silly. Nobody's studied the people that are making that argument. are dismissing a massive amount of engagement historically, philosophically, about tools. I mean, you can go back to 4th century Plato engaging a story in his Phaedrus about the Egyptian king, an ancient story about the Egyptian king being worried about writing. Instead of oral culture, the idea of writing things down.
Yeah.
And so Plato engages with this fascinating dialogue about technological progress. Is that progress? Is writing, moving to writing, progress over oral history? And the dialogue between the two interlocutors is worth reading.
Yeah.
Then you move to the Romans in the 2nd century. We have this documentation when sundials were invented and imported into Rome. The sundial.
Yeah.
And how it would change the ordering of the day and how people would become more time conscious. This is the 2nd century BC.
Yeah.
And then you can follow it all up until the 13th century and the monks engaging the mechanical clock.
Yeah.
Then you have the, so there are ways of, people have always been thinking technology is disruptive.
Yeah.
And there've always been techno-optimists, techno-pessimists.
Yeah.
But you can look through historically, and we're down to that compression cycle. You get to roughly 1800, and you have the hockey stick of human progress.
Yeah.
And that, economic progress. I mean, something happened in 1800.
Yeah.
That then, the per capita income and all of the, unfettered wealth and growth across the world.
Yeah.
And we're just leaning into that. So yes, we have much to be thankful for. We are wealthier. And we point to some of these benchmarks: healthier, wealthier, we live longer.
Yeah.
And we're wealthier.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world is coming along with that.
Yeah.
But we're living longer, but are we actually healthier?
Yeah.
Are we
holistic health?
Yes, holistic in all medical health also, and in just because fertility replacement rate.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about Paul Virilio and shipwreck, because the ship is good, shipwreck is bad.
Yeah.
And there's major debate, but if you think about the pill, in 1960, the invention of the birth control pill, because right now we're 65 years away from that moment.
Yeah.
And all major developed nations are below, either right at or below fertility replacement rate.
Yeah. That's a whole other topic that we could do a podcast on. It's wildly fascinating to me.
But it's technological. It's a tech.
Yeah.
It's a technology.
Yeah.
And so people think about technology and AI. Most people don't think about the mundane technologies that actually built the world. What about steel reinforced concrete? Some people argue that steel reinforced concrete is what changed the world. Clean water. So does Africa need AI?
Yeah.
Or do they need stable governments with stable roads, stable electrical grids, and clean water so their people aren't dying?
Yeah.
Maintenance. What we think about is what we take for granted every morning: flip on the light, flush the toilet, take a hot shower.
Yeah.
Infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's so basic, but we're all so consumed with AI
that
we're not thinking of some of these other things that could be even more justice impacting and more God honoring. If people, it would affect more people in the developing world, if they had more of these more basic things that are still technological. And so I think I just want to provoke people. I want to engage people. I want to pick at the edges, around the margins of some of the conversations that are out there, and say, can we think differently? Not denying that artificial intelligence is real, not not the silly side of things, but encouraging people to think much broader about the issue of technology and their faith.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan, for being on.
Mike,
Appreciate
thanks.
it.
Yeah.
All right. See ya.